Walker. Joining me now, Democrat from the state of Illinois and a member of the House Intelligence Committee, so he will be in a position to ask Robert Mueller those all-important questions on Wednesday. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. The Intelligence Committee is going to be meeting with Mueller on Wednesday. It'll be two separate committees, but a total of 5 hours. And we know that just moments ago, you heard it, we heard it, the president spoke for 30 minutes, trying very hard to discredit Robert Mueller. What was your take on the president's comments?
Well, I think, first of all, I don't believe that the president's not going to watch any of this testimony or tweet during the 5 hours of testimony. But I think that it is Mueller time. It's Bob Mueller's chance to talk about his report. I doubt very few of your viewers actually read the report. It's very long and dense. And I think a lot of them are going to consume the report through his live testimony. It's like a lot more people watched Godfather the movie than read the book.
Yes, but here's the thing. You don't know what Robert Mueller is going to do. So is there a risk that for Democrats, when you say to me, it's Mueller, sit back and he's going to put on a show, he doesn't want to put on a show. He doesn't want to be there.
That's right. I think that he's going to be speaking mostly about what he found and what's in the report. But even doing that and educating the public will be a big service. Just one thing that jumps out at you about his report is how, you know, the Trump campaign actually had advanced knowledge of the interference that Russia was going to conduct in 2016. They welcomed it. They used the fruits of that exploitation. And then they took meetings with the Russians, which they never reported to the FBI or law enforcement, and then they covered them up later on. Even if it didn't rise to a criminal conspiracy, it was deeply unpatriotic.
You've said that Wednesday's testimony could move the American people to push for an impeachment of President Trump, at the very least, vote him out of office come 2020. What happens if that doesn't pan out?
Well, I don't know. I think that...
I mean, do Democrats have a backup plan?
Well, I think that right now regardless of what happens with the Mueller hearing, the investigations have to continue. I think one thing you mentioned in your previous segment is very important, which is, in part, some of the questioning is going to be about what Mr. Mueller did not do as part of his investigation. For instance, looking into counterintelligence risks associated with links between current Trump administration officials and the Russians, or looking into the president's finances and how that could help motivate what he's doing right now with regard to the Russians. We're going to continue to have to investigate those lines of inquiry and show the American people the results of those investigations.
The president talked about a lot of things while he was just speaking in the Oval Office.
He did.
One of them was the economy. And about low unemployment, specifically low unemployment for African Americans, and he talked about the booming stock market. If the president leans on the economy and decides to make that his focus rather than race, what position can Democrats take, knowing that a huge portion of the country isn't doing that well? Sure.
Well, obviously, House Republicans ran on that as well in 2018. And as you know, the House flipped to a Democratic majority. And the reason was very simple, which is a lot of people don't feel like the economy is doing as well as he would advertise. And also, despite his campaign promises to lower prescription drugs or rebuild America's infrastructure, neither of those and none of the other campaign promises he's made have actually come to fruition. I think that Democrats need to continue to run on these pocketbook issues, and if they do and present a vision for how to move America forward, I think that we will do well.
Well, as a fellow member of Congress, what is your take on the president and his allies as he looks to 2020, not looking at the 20-plus people who he's running against as the possible face of the Democratic Party, but instead 4 female freshman congresswomen, all who are women of color? What do you think about this shift, and what positions should the party be taking?
Well, I think that one thing that I believe he did in attacking those 4 women was in some ways unifying the party and the caucus against kind of the racism and bigotry and intolerance that his comments and he has represented. I think that we have to at the same time galvanize around those issues, we do have to present that positive economic vision and continue to show how Americans need to get onto the up escalator of the economy and that we have the policies for doing that.
But do you run the risk that you could play to the president's hand? He's okay if you call him a racist. He's okay if you call him shameless. Democrats have been calling him that. Non-Democrats have been calling him that for years. His goal was to galvanize the Democratic Party, which, to your point, he just did. His goal is to galvanize the Democratic Party in terms of policy. A week ago, we were not talking about Democrats being unified in terms of policy. Has the president changed your brand and your message and pulled the party further to the left?
I don't think so. And although you're correct that some people have kind of sounded the alarm on a number of his statements in the past, I got to tell you, like 30% of my constituents are foreign-born, and numerous others have foreign-born loved ones and relatives. They're not all Democrats or Republicans or independents. They are all Americans, and they're all very upset about what he did. I myself am a naturalized citizen and an immigrant. And I got to tell you that what he did in making those comments, I think, changed people's impressions of him to some degree in the middle, even people who weren't Democrats. And I think that is something that he runs the risk of if he continues this. It's not only politically bad, it's obviously morally wrong, but I think that we have to also focus on a positive economic vision that's inclusive of all Americans, regardless of what he says.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.